Hi, my name is Michael Goldman and welcome to another episode of The Meeting Doctor. Today what we're going to focus on is how to proactively manage group conflict. Group conflict is inevitable, especially during change. And when I'm talking about change, I mean change in how we run our processes, like how we do data management. It could be change in terms of the mandate for the team, the project. It could be change in how we do things on a day-to-day basis. Regardless of the change, it isn't about stopping conflict or resistance from happening. It's about how do we react when it does happen. Having a tool in your back pocket as a facilitator to help you manage group conflict when it occurs makes the difference between a successful and unsuccessful facilitation. One of the most important and fundamental proactive conflict management tools that I use as a facilitator in anticipation of conflict or resistance is called norm setting. Norm setting is a tool that I use that really speaks to the principles, the rules, the behavioral guidelines that a group wants to engage in order to ensure that they stay on track, that no one dominates, that people don't interrupt one another, that technology is used appropriately. When we're talking about norms, we're speaking about two different classes of norms. Let's start with operating norms. Operating norms address the following questions. When in meetings, how do we want to run our meetings? How often? How long? And under what circumstances would we want one of our members to facilitate discussions? 2, how do we want to problem solve? How do we want to move from problem identification to problem resolution? What are the steps that we want to take? 3, how do we want to make decisions? What kind of structure do we want to use? And what kind of decision-making process do we want to use? We have prioritization, we have majority voting. Which ones would make the best use and under what circumstances? And finally, how do we want to test for agreement? 4, how do we want to manage the work coming in so that it's balanced, so that everyone fairly and equally gets their share? These are the types of questions that we want to ask to help the group derive their operational norms. Let's now talk about interactive or interpersonal norms. During the meeting, we would be asking these types of questions. 1, how do we want to communicate with each other during and between meetings? 2, what types of conflict could occur and how do we want to manage each type of conflict? This is probably the most important one you want to deal with in the group because this is the one that could cause the most dysfunction and actually stop the group from being effective. And 3, how do we want to deal with the use of technology during the meeting? Again, if this isn't dealt with, it can be very annoying to those who really don't want to bring technology into meetings. The best way to generate norms is by asking the group to define the challenges or annoyances or those kind of behaviors that drive them crazy during meetings. Let them brainstorm and discuss these ideas, and then go back to those ideas and starting from the first idea, ask the group to define what kind of rule or guideline or norm should we put in place to minimize or eliminate the potential for each of these behaviors. Once you've gone through all the lists, you're going to need to turn to the group at the end and say, can everyone live with this final list? If there's any one person who can't live with it, you're going to need to ask them what changes or modifications need to occur so that you can buy into this norm. If still you have resistance, or if that person doesn't like it, or a few people don't, then just put that norm on the side. But always reserve the right to come back to that norm just in case that dysfunction arises and you need to fall back to that norm in order to deal with it. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Meeting Doctor. Please tell your like-minded friends about this video and subscribe to The Meeting Doctor, your go-to resource for tips and techniques on how to run healthier meetings.